What's the crack, lads? Welcome back to the channel. Now, this video is a long one, okay? But it is basically me live streaming today and a recap of everything we covered it with all V5.2 changes, speed boost versus speed decreases for defenders, how to actually play the new meta, and also retraining a ton of cards. Enjoy the video. It's a long one. You can watch it in multiple parts if you want. I'll catch you in the next one. So this right here is a prime example of what's changed in V5.2. If you guys are struggling with understanding the speed of the game now, the defenders getting a speed boost, attackers getting a speed decrease in certain situations, watch this clip play out from our stream where I get the ball with Lookman, Kakitani splits the defense with a beautiful pass, and you can see the speed boost given to Militao here, who is a fast defender, but I mean, he's not Roadrunner, he's not Usain Bolt. You flip the script, you flip the switch, and on the other side, my defender gets a speed decrease and his attacker gets a speed boost. This is another example here where the speed has been slightly altered to change things, and slightly altered because the defenders have gotten a lot more explosive and a lot more acceleration based. You can see Cannavaro, it's a manual slide tackle that goes in, but before I can actually attack and react and actually get past him, he not only slide tackles quicker than me, he slide tackles, gets back up, and is ahead of me in the sprint before I... Now, obviously, you can still score your blitzes and you can still score this. They haven't really touched other aspects of the game. It's mostly that when these spam balls are going through, such as this, they're not going through at as much of a rate as they were before. So this is an example of a kind of a spam through ball that was getting a little bit more effective as the game went on. With V5.2, it's not as effective now. But if you notice now, okay, that obviously now they've added this brand new analysis tool where you're able to analyze yourself against any other player in the game, right? So if we go in and we look at the world number one right now, that is the top rank in eFootball, and we compare our analysis against him, you will see that the game has slightly changed compared to where it was before in terms of how the top guys that are getting multiple victories in a row and are playing the game at its most, meta and most effective tactic that works, you will see that the types of goals that they're scoring, the types of chances that they're creating, it has slightly changed, right? The biggest thing I've noticed is the amount of pressure that a lot of the top guys are using. You can see here, the call for pressure. That is a huge one. 40 versus 1. So I am doing a lot of manually defending. I'm doing a lot of matchup. I've noticed that a lot of people are not using matchup anymore. This guy's using 41% of matchup. I'm using 70. This is the world number one. And obviously me, I'm nearly using twice as much matchup as him. I think that they've definitely, matchup, a lot of people that are pushing rank, they don't use matchup and they don't use the manual defense when the AI is in a better position than them. And they can just leave the AI position themselves to win the ball back. Even if it's just getting a leg in, if it's getting anything to rebound the ball or get an interception. They're not trying to win the ball clean the whole time. They're letting the play develop to a point where it's like, right, the AI is set. I'm going to chase back with my DMF and I'm going to let the AI step into that position. Then they'll switch to him and they'll start a counter-attack. So in the news and in this that they've actually talked about, they talk about the actual defending here, where they say we've primarily adjusted how defending is balanced in relation to true balls. And they've said that raise the minimum speed exhibited by players who have low player stats in speed and acceleration, and made adjustments so that the player stat defensive awareness now impacts acceleration levels when marking an opponent. So what I would say again, if I was to show you an example, right, of any of these clips that we're seeing here, okay, any of these clips here, if I was to show you an example of this is what we're talking about here. Right? It's the separation between centre backs and fast players, right? I know that this guy isn't an absolute rocket. Like, he's not 100 speed or 100 acceleration. I get that. But I mean, I'm a good yard or two ahead of him, and I just get eaten by Militao. And this Militao, as far as I know, was the player of the week one, which is fine. But it just seems to be like this artificial speed boost has come back for the defenders. And that's what it is. So with that in mind, if you are training, I'll give you 3 bits of advice on it, right? And this is going to be a fairly lengthy video. But if you have a centre back I would say that the brand new, it's not a brand new, but I would say that you could tweak all of their builds. This is going to favor some players like Maldini. I know that there's a brand new Maldini coming out on Monday. It's this Maldini above my head, right? And he's not going to have this issue because he's going to be slightly faster. But if you've got the old school Maldini, the old school Maldini, 80 speed and 80 acceleration will be enough if you get 99 defensive awareness and 99 tackling with him. You've still got everything else where you need to go. So before, Maldini would just not be able to compete with the likes of Thuram. If you look at the discrepancy here. So you're talking about Thuram has 91 speed versus 80 speed for Maldini and 85 acceleration versus 80. Like, that is a big separator before this update patch. With V5.2, it's not so much a separator anymore. So Tony Adams is now a beast. A lot of the old school centre backs, I think if you have, right, if we were to take a look, right, at this centre back, Thuram is not even worth talking about. He's too powerful. He's too strong. The same as any of the recent legends that they've brought out, where you can get the likes of Cannavaro. Any of them can go to 90 speed, 85 acceleration. Like, for example, with Cannavaro, there is genuinely no reason, right, to decrease Cannavaro's speed to 85 because there's nowhere else to put it. If you put it into defending and you bring him to 15 defending points, I mean, you could do that if you wanted to, but it's not going to make a massive, massive difference to the card because he's already maxed out his defensive awareness. And this was the free Cannavaro that you could get. But he's still, even at that, he has 85 speed, he has 85 acceleration. Heading, again, Seb, I don't pay any heed to heading because 90% of people are going to attack on the ground. Literally don't. Tony Adams has the same issue with heading. He's only got 80 heading. I am telling you that you do not need a heading stat anymore in the game unless you're coming up against the odd person that is either going to spam collar or spam bullet header. And if that happens, even if you've got a player with 99 heading and 99 jump, such as Rio Ferdinand or any of those, it's not going to really make that much of a difference. Van Buyten is another good shout as well, right? So Van Buyten was a good card at the time. I would potentially probably leave his dexterity at that because there's nowhere else to put it. But I mean, you have Van Buyten in to do a job for you. I would like to get it to 95 attack or defensive awareness if you could. The only way you're going to do that is if you take down his speed a little bit, which you could do now. If you wanted to reduce it to 75, you could do that. And you could get his dexterity to 75. So that would be 75 and 75. And then you'll have one more to put into this if you take it from his aerial strength. That's going to max out his defensive awareness at 95. 99 tackling, 91 aggression. I'd say that the new threshold for defenders now is if they can't go to 85 speed and acceleration, such as Thuram or such as Cannavaro, I would say max out their defensive awareness as high as it can possibly go and max out their physicality. That's what I would say. So we're going to do all of these cards, right? And we're going to show you the progression. Any cards that you guys want, get in touch. But we're going to start with a lot of these cards, right? This is the free Cannavaro. This is probably where I would go with him right now, okay? So you've got 3 into dexterity, 6 into lower body strength, 4 into aerial strength, and either, depending on how much manual defense that you do, because you have the luxury of either picking between a 90 speed, right, or 103 defensive awareness, I would potentially take 3 points off that. I would max out, I'd take 2 points off that. I'd max out his defensive stats here, where there's nowhere left for defensive awareness to be risen. So it's going to be maxed at 103 with this card. The only thing you could do is add 2 more to have his defensive engagement at 99. I don't think it's needed. He's got 95 jump. We can add a little bit more, but if you want to go this route and get him to 88 speed, you can do that. That is probably the build I would go with him if you wanted to go that route. And maybe 1 more onto physical contact. Now, obviously, with the booster there as well, we've given him shutdown. But that is what I would be doing. But again, you don't have to go 88 speed. Same with Tony Adams. Tony Adams, this is the perfect build for him now with the new V5.2 meta. But it requires 1 extra step than I have done already because I don't have the boosters. This is his build. 3 into dex, 10 into lower body, 7 into aerial, 12 into defending, and then 1 into goalkeeper 1. And then you're also going to have to give him a shutdown booster, which is going to raise his speed to 85. Don't mind his acceleration. You don't need it. And we're going to give him another shutdown booster here, which is going to be a double dip, and that's going to improve his speed to 85 and his defensive awareness to 95. Van Buiten, I've seen a few people struggle to build him. I would go with a 75-75 build for him with acceleration and speed, and then max out his defensive stats as much as you can. So again, 8 into dex, 7 into lower body, 2 into aerial strength, and 13 into defending. The likes of Maldini, this is an old school Maldini. Again, very, very simple. 80 into his speed and acceleration, 5 into dex, 5 into lower body, 9 into aerial strength, and 12 into defending, with 1 left over for goalkeeper 1. The new Maldini, as I said, that is coming out, is going to be slightly different because you won't need to... You know, V5.2 isn't going to make a huge change if you've got a God Squad. Any of these players, like Rio Ferdinand, again, he has no real weakness in him because you can go 90 speed and you can go 80 acceleration, right? There is no weakness with him. Like, you can't, like, for example, if you want to max out Rio Ferdinand at 85 speed, which, again, is very viable if you want to leave it at that, there's nowhere else really to put the defensive stats in because you're only going to get in a max of 2. Yes, you can max him out, but with this booster that we've given him, we're not going to, you know, we're going to have to change his booster and give him a defending booster. So I wouldn't worry too much about it once his defensive awareness is at 100. Especially for the type of player Rio is. I would probably go either with the lower body strength at 90, as you're seeing here. You don't need acceleration past 85. That is what I would say, man. If you want to, you can. If you want to go like 82 and 89 and change his booster, you can. But I wouldn't. Personally speaking, I would probably leave it at that, which would be a 3 into dex, 9 into lower body strength, 7 into aerial strength, 13 into defending. Say for Carlos, again, genuinely, man, Peppa Pig could train this card because there's no weakness in him, right? So if you decide here, I'm going to actually take down his dribbling, you're only gaining 1 point to bring it down to 92. You're only gaining another 2 points to bring it down to 90. So for this case, I would just bring up his speed as much as possible. The only difference that you could make here is to put it into defending, but you can only put 1 in, and then you have to change his entire booster. So I wouldn't say that it just rectifies it all the time, that you don't have to have extra speed. What it would be is that, like, for cards that are kind of a little against the grain and that haven't been viable in a long time, such as Costa Curta, is it worth bringing Costa Curta's stats down a little bit here and bringing his acceleration and his speed down, because we've a lot spent on speed here. If we bring down 5 points from this, or sorry, 4 points from this, and max it at 10, we're going to have an 85 speed build. Now we can bring his acceleration up a little bit. We can actually hit quite easily 80 with this and still have, oh no, sorry, we can just hit 80 with this now. So that's an 85 speed, 80 acceleration build for a fullback. If we're playing Costa Curta as a centre back, you can literally take that dexterity down, and that is going to be able to be maxed out at 75. You don't even need 75. But you've now freed up 12 points that you can put 2 more in to get him at 15. That's going to make a slight difference to his card because it maxes out his defensive engagement. You don't get 94 tackle or aggression unless you take out from the rest of his cards, such as goalkeeper 1 or whatever. But you can do that if you wanted to and still have his aerial strength quite nice. Obviously, you're not going to go at 90 aggression, but the rest of the cards are really nice. That's only if you're playing him as a centre-back. Where I think the game has really kind of like changed is if you are playing like an old school card, or you're playing a card that you just, you know, isn't at the meta, such as Silvestre. Now, Silvestre, I noticed yesterday in the stream, was beasting. You could potentially, if you're playing him defensively, you could take down this card a little bit here to 80 acceleration, 85 speed, and that frees up his defensive capabilities. If you're not looking to defend, you can still add acceleration on if you want to go that route with him. It's not going to get 85, but you've got all defensive stats 90 now, while still having tight possession. His physical contact is quite poor, but you're using him as an attack and full back. So this card here, man, honestly, look, this card here, you don't need 90 speed, 90 acceleration with this Beckham if all you're doing is passing with him. You know what I mean? It's more important to have a lot of these stats into the high 90s. But he already has these stats into the high 90s. 85 finishing for a cross specialist is more than enough. Curl at 98 is more than enough. Yes, you could go with the finishing and the curl a bit higher if you wanted to. But honestly, man, I do feel like that with this card, And with all of these cards, you genuinely don't need these stats to be buffed up. You don't need to change it. So what I would say is, right, with these cards here, the right midfielders and the left midfielders, or any of these cards, I would say that this only probably applies for cards that you might have used at one stage, but that have been, again, like I said earlier in the video, have been slightly like underwhelmingly or slightly overwhelmed by the new cards. Do you know what I mean? With David Beckham here. Like, this old school Beckham is 99 lofted pass. So I don't think you need to upgrade to the new Beckham because he's not ever going to be blistering fast. Even if you get 90 plus speed on him, like what we have here. So that's what I would say. For Neymar, obviously he's gonna be a dribbler. He's not gonna be passing, so you can build him kind of differently. Do you know? So 6'4", 6'11", 9'5", 0'0". Messi, again, have no weakness. I don't think that these cards need to be rebuilt at all, lads. Honestly, you don't need to tweak any defenders or any attacker stats compared to the defenders. What I would probably tweak more than anything would be the speed of your defenders and your DMFs, your CBs, any of these. Vieira is a prime example there. Like, there is no real justification for changing Vieira's stats if he's dominating for you. Yes, it would be nice to get his defensive awareness to 94. What you could potentially do there is take away this and just give that. If you want to take one off aerial strength, you could do that. You still have 90 physical contact if you take a little bit off his other stats. So you could take his passing because he is literally a one-stop shop. That's all he is. Like, if you could get his aerial strength there, which you can, that is a nice card, man. 85 speed, 80 kicking power, 90 physical contact, 95 stamina, and then the rest of his defensive stats. So again, that is genuinely such a marginal change to his card, but it's a slightly better built card with V5.2. 7 passing, 4 dribbling, 2 dex, 8 lower body, 4 aerial strength, 15 defending, 0, 0, 0 into the rest. If you have an other DMF, such as a slower base card, I would maximize defensive awareness if it's a choice between them. See, lads, these cards don't need it, man. Even the free right card, right? If you're to look at the free right card here, like, he goes to 90 speed, like, with 75 acceleration, but he's an anchorman. So, yes, it's nice to have his speed at 90, because there's nowhere else to put the stats, but you literally could get by, man. You could get by with this card with 85 speed. You genuinely could. And boost up his defense if you wanted to go that route, because you can then get his defensive capabilities to 95. And this card slots into a CB seamlessly then. And he's no slower than Patrick Vieira, and he's got the big long legs. So, you know, it's an amazing card. Jordan Henderson, again, 95, 95, 95, and 95 for all defensive stats. I mean, if you guys didn't pick Jordan Henderson as an absolute monster, man, then I genuinely don't, do you know what I mean? I don't know what to say. Like, he's a beast. He's a really, really good card, man. Really, really good card. And that's the build I went for him there. 4, 4, 3, 10, 5, 14, and 1. Yo, Insidious, thank you, brother. I have not had the chance to be around much lately. Glad to see you were still on. Thank you, bro. Lou, he's a beast, man. Thank you, bro. He's a beast. I think he's a beast, but he doesn't perform as well as Vieira. I think the biggest problem is his player ID. Like, is he as good as Rijkaard? No. Is he as good as Patrick Vieira? No. Is he as good as even smaller players? Makelele, Edgar Davids, Gattuso? No, he's not. But he is a beast. He is a beast. I think he's a monster, man. He, like, for my free-to-play, he is literally like a free-to-play Vieira. That's not as good, obviously. But then again, you can't really, do you know what I mean? But any of these cards are going to do it for you, like. Yo, Skinny, what's up? But these cards, man, don't have a weakness like Gattuso. No need to change. It's more for these cards. Like, if you were looking at, remember the old school Rodri that we had? Or the old school Davids? Or Did I go past Rodri? Yeah, this Rodri. Remember this Rodri when he came out, lads? He was an absolute monster. He was a monster, man. He was an absolute monster, man. '91 defensive awareness, 90 tackling, 94 aggression, 92 defensive engagement, 77 speed, 61 acceleration. And I guarantee you, man, I guarantee you, he will not be as slow as he was. Now, he is actually quite slow. This is a bad card to look at because he only has 26 levels. But still, I mean, as an anchorman, you don't really need passing on him. So that frees up 5 spots. But this card, lads, was an old card. Yeah, I did do Araujo as well. So if you talk about this card here with Rodri, the newer Rodri, he's actually quite fast compared to the older one. So again, if you take one out of each of those, you'll have an 80 speed, 75 acceleration. And then you can actually either put that into defense, or where I'd put it is probably one into that and one into defense. You're still not going to get the boosters because obviously these guys don't compare with the new cards. Say that the only cards you really need to train are the smaller base cards such as Messi or Romario or Eto'o. And I would max out their speed and acceleration now. So for example, with Samuel Eto'o, if you can, once you have his balance at 85, which I think is a must, I would say that his physical contact, you don't even need physical contact anymore. I would probably train and retrain this to have the physical contact down. Once it's over 72, grand. Or 70, it's grand. Because it's not going to make a difference. The defenders, if they want to win the ball now, they're going to win the ball. It's as simple as that. And finishing, yes, you could have his finishing at 90 plus if you wanted to. 90 is more than enough. But Eto'o's probably a bad example because he's got maxed out stats anyway. And you can max out his pace very, very quickly. So that's 100 speed, 102 acceleration. But that is what Eto'o is there for. He's there to get the ball, to run in a straight line, touch and go, and have blistering pace. If you're looking for something a little bit more, like, I suppose maybe the likes of Bale as well. Bale is a good example as a CF or as a left midfielder. Again, he doesn't need as much finishing, but he's maxed out his speed and his acceleration, but he's got physical contact as well out the wazoo. So he'll actually be able to, like, you know, be good physically. So that's what I would say. But it's for these smaller base players. Like the old school Mbappe, like this new school Mbappe. Again, he's just pure blister and pace. Obviously, he's a blitz curler. I don't know why you don't use him more, actually. All right, do you know what we're going to do, man? We're going to do a test match here. And I'm literally just going to play a couple of, like, slow players. Dante, listen to what I'm saying, bro. Listen to what I'm saying. I'll say it very, very clearly. I'm not saying physical contact doesn't matter anymore. I'm saying that physical contact is overridden now by defenders when they want to win a ball. That's all I'm saying, man. For example, I literally just showed you an example. If you can have Gareth Bale's stats at this as a left midfielder, there is no point in not having his physical contact at the risk of any other stat, right? There's no point having anything else here because you can actually get his physical contact to 90. What I'm saying is that I wouldn't choose to have the likes of Kylian Mbappe, which much more than physical contact. Because if you're getting bullied off the ball with Mbappe and Eto'o by Tony Adams or Rio Ferdinand, then your attack patterns are incorrect. You shouldn't be bringing the ball into defenders. I don't have Baresi. No, that's okay, bro. You don't have to apologize, man. You don't have to apologize. If you missed the point, you missed the point, man. I wouldn't say... It's like anything, like... These cards have no weakness, bro. So you don't need to take out the stats and be like, yeah, I have to choose between 99 speed. Like, if it's a case of me hitting a threshold for a card, I'm always going to hit the threshold and like the loss of the other stats. But the cards like Messi, like, you don't need to choose between tight possession, finishing, speed, acceleration, and kicking power because they all hit the thresholds and more Once you get to 90, you're fine. You know, once you get to 90, you're fine. It's more for, I think, cards like kind of, you know, cards that have been slightly left behind. That can still do a job for you, but they've slightly been left behind compared to the newer cards that have come out. Like there's nobody comparing to the new strikers that have come out. You know? That's what I'm saying is that I would, yes, in an ideal world, would I like Samuel Eto'o to have 85 physical contact? Of course, because then I can actually, you know, I can actually train him a little bit different, and I can play, his build-up can be a little bit different. But I'm not going to train his card and put so much points into Samuel Eto'o to get his physical contact up to 80, because look what I'd have to do. Now, you could, if you wanted to, depending on how you play, 95 and 95 is probably going to be more than enough if you wanted to do that. And you would be able to get his physical contact up. Like, you could probably put 12 into it, and you could get it to 85 with a booster, if you wanted to do that. But the same way is that if you wanted to turn him into, you know, have his finishing at 95, you can do that as well. Or 97 or 99. But I'm going to do a really quick fire, like, builds, showing you my builds for V5.2. Not all of these are going to apply to you. Not all of these are going to be, you know, worth changing or worth retraining. I will say, right, for any card that you have that is literally going to go over 100 rating, you literally don't need to retrain them at all, in my opinion. If you want to, I would say it's more like little tiny tweaks, such as the likes of Vieira, who I have an updated build for now, because I've taken his acceleration down from 85 to put it at 81 and put his defensive awareness to 95. I'm viewing 95 awareness now as the new threshold of defensive awareness, unless Konami roll it back. From what I've seen, 95 awareness is like speed boost. It's like speed stat for defenders on crack. The Lance Armstrong dive. So this is the build for him here for Vieira. I'll do the most popular players and we'll work our way through. 0, 7, 4, 2, 8, 4, and 15 into defending. Yes, it's a lot, but that gets you 95 awareness with shutdown booster. We also have Lewis Dunk. We don't have the booster on him, but the booster we're going to give him is going to be the defensive booster, and that is obviously going to maximize his defense to 95 awareness, 95 aggression, and of course his defensive engagement as well is going to go to 99. Tackling is only going to stay at 92. That's not a problem. 85 speed, 70 acceleration. His physical contact is not going to go past 84, but that's fine. All we're doing is putting 11 into lower body, 7 into aerial strength, 12 into defending, and 1 into goalkeeper 1 if you want to for the jump. We also have old school Van Buiten, any school Van Buiten, new school, old school, whatever. Once you have 95 defensive awareness and the rest of his stats at 90 or above, with 75 speed, 75 acceleration. If you've got the new Van Buiten, you can go 80 speed or 85 speed if you really want to. You don't need more than 75 acceleration on him. I did a test with these builds for a 95 speed, 95 acceleration Jordi Alba and Cafu at 95 and 95. I would now make my attacking fullbacks a little bit more well-rounded. So I would potentially probably reduce their speed and acceleration to 90 and 90. And then I would either decide that if you want to play them with a bit of passing or dribbling, obviously, you know, we have a bit of shooting on here for the curl to 80, but I would probably just make them all-rounders because of the way the game is gone. So I would probably just max out their defending here because he's hitting every other threshold in it. 90 defensive engagement, 86 defensive awareness, and obviously it's 4, 7, 9, 3, 5, 5, 12. And then obviously the booster is agility. Who else did we have? So that was kind of like our defensive players. Pirlo is an interesting one because Pirlo has always hit that 85 speed, 85 acceleration, but he has been lacking the aggression at 90, but he has defensive awareness. That's the build I have for Pirlo. 0, 3, 5, 8, 12, 2, 11. And that is the booster there, which is agility. You could obviously get a better booster on him because you're not spending that many points if you want to go defensive with him. But he's just a brilliant all-rounder. We also have Thuram. So this is the old school Thuram. I'm not going to waste my time training the other Thuram, but I mean, there is no really update on this either. 90 speed, 85 acceleration, 98 jump and 90 physical contact, 90 heading, only because there is nowhere else to put the stats. 2 into dex, 4 into lower body, 9 into area strength, 17 into defending, and 2 into goalkeeper 1. And his booster is shutdown. Similarly, we have the other version of Thuram. That is the French version of Thuram. We have him there somewhere as well. Hold on now. thought we did anyway. Where's the other version of Turam? Did I go past him? No, this is the other version of Turam. So they're pretty much the same. Pretty much identical there with the 90 speed, 85 acceleration. Same build. Pretty much the same build. 4 into dex, 4 to lower body, 7 into aerial strength, and 18 into defending with this one. Now, you could say, listen, do I need to have his stats if they don't make much of a difference? You don't need to. This is a good example of kind of having the stats, right? Once you get to 99 awareness, which is going to be 16 here, it's not a massive, massive difference to the card. You could, if you wanted to, put the rest into either physicality and heading, or acceleration, or lower body. Like, you can get his lower body and his dex up, or you can get his aerial strength up. The booster is going to be shut down. 95 jumping. You can go 95 speed. But the thing is, nobody attacks in the air, really. Like, there's very few people that are attacking aerial in the ball. You know what I mean? That's what I would say. Like, if you compare, right, this guy that we just played, and you look at his analysis, right? He has a lofted pass. You can see here, 1% of the time he's using a lofted pass. And as you go up to divisions, unless somebody has built their squad around collar, around bullet headers, around cross spam, you're not going to come up against it, man. You're just not. You're not going to come up against somebody. Yeah, if somebody, you could play somebody in 100% of their balls. That sounded wrong. But 100% of the balls they're putting into the box are either lofted passes, chipped passes, or crosses. It's going to be different than this. But I would say that, like, that is going to be few and far between. That is what I would say. That is what I would say. Like, and again, you have it here where you're talking about, like, you know, different things like that people are going to do. I would say that you'd find it, like, if you play 2 matches in a row where people are cross spamming, I would say that that's a rarity now. Yes, back, I know Collar's brought out. I haven't come up, even since Collar and Beckham have been out, right? And we got the new Collar and Beckham, right? And Collar does have, and I'll show you his build with 80 speed, 80 acceleration, 100 physical contact, 99 head, like Margot Robbie excels at it with the heading. Like, I have scored, I would say, probably 10 matches, 10 goals. I've scored probably 5 goals with Collar's head. The rest have come from on the ground. So unless you are deliberately building your attack and your attack patterns for crosses, right? You're just not going to have to deal with that as an option a lot of the time. Most of the people are going to play the ball on the deck. You know what I mean? They're going to play it on the ground. So unless you actually are coming up against somebody that is going to spam, the same way as, like, how often do you concede against a blitz curler in the process of playing 5 matches? Are you conceding 2 or 3 goals from blitz curls? Like, even though Collar and Beckham came out on Monday, I literally haven't conceded a goal from crosses, I'd say, since that. Yes, people would try it against you, but the game is not built towards that. So just a quick kind of read of that, like, of any of the players, the popular players, like Gareth Bale, this is the build we have for him here, 0771193. We have this MSN Messi. I haven't really tweaked him too much. It's almost a perfect card, depending on where you're playing him. 7, 3, 7, 10, 11. Very, very simple. Boosters for those. Agility. And I think Bale is shooting. Yep. I'm not even going to waste my time in training Pele or any of these cards that have no weakness. Literally have no weakness. But Beto's still a very solid option if you're looking to play with a, you know, a shark king up front. 94 finishing is only aided. We only want that because of 90 curl. 91 balance because of 95 attack and awareness. Acceleration, speed, kick and power type possession. Phenomenal card as well. And that's the build there with shooting. 708 1282. These are all the versions of Messi, right, that I've used. This is the builds. This is Roman flank Messi, boot kiss 4 4 12 10 8 0 0 0. This is the creative playmaker Messi, who, in my opinion, is probably the best version of Messi because of his stats. 1 4 5 11 14 0 0. Now you might ask the question, does he need this much speed? Well, the problem with this Messi is he doesn't get to 90 speed, but you don't really need it. Does he need the acceleration? Potentially not. Does he need the low pass this high? Potentially not. But there's nowhere else to put the build and nowhere else to put the stats. And I love him as an AMF, especially because we've given him flip-flap and soul control. With double touch, And I've only played 175 games with him, but scored 82 goals and 56 assists. Compare that to the old other Messi, which was the original bully Messi. A lot of people still love him because of his huge physical contact. And obviously that's been given a boost because of the fact that they've changed certain managers to have different boosters. That's his build there. 6, 0, 5, 10. 14 lower body, 2 aerial strength. And with the booster, he's got his +4 king of football. This was obviously before double boosters. But I've played 338 games with this Messi and scored 200 goals and 79 assists. So every Messi card is going to do you the same. It's going to be the same end result. I think Messi is unreal. Roberto Carlos, again, a phenomenal card. I think probably too overpowered to really get into the nitty-gritty of his card. I mean, he's just a monster, like an absolute monster. 2 ways of training him. This is the build that I had gone for him, which was with a 95 curl. I would probably take down his... Like, I think if you're playing Carlos as a left midfielder, lads, right? Obviously, we've given him dueling here. I think if you're playing Carlos as a left midfielder, that's where I go. He doesn't excel in anything. Like, his passing and his finishing are not at 90. And we've given a lot into passing and finishing here. So I would probably take down his dribbling a little bit there if you could and give him a different booster. But then you're going to be lacking his defense. If you're playing him up here, you don't need any defense. You can take all of that away. I mean, you're still going to have... Well, you could go 75 if you wanted to. 3 into that isn't going to change the dial. But I don't think you need any more than those stats. He's a beast, man. Maybe 95 speed. Or maybe max out his kicking power if you wanted to go that route. Maybe. 7-11-9-5-8-0-3. And you've got 1 left over. So that's just a selection of a lot of cards. But honestly, it's more centre backs than anything that need to be changed and need to be tweaked. Goalkeepers don't need to be changed at all. Cannavaro, the free version of Cannavaro still hasn't been a better free card than him, in my opinion. Phenomenal card. I would probably even like leave his speed at that. Like if you take 1 off his defending, it's still 102, but you lose the aggression. So I would probably leave it at that. Which is a very simple 3 into dex, 9 into lower body, 5 into aerial strength, and 13 into defending. And all versions of him will be like that.